Okay, recording's on. Um, yeah, so thanks for coming. Notes are pasted in the chat, and I guess I was just gonna go through a little bit of kind of the status of where things are now, um, and answer any questions anybody has, but just kind of give a quick update to anybody who's interested, and ask for feedback. Um, Anybody want to add anything to that?
Can we discuss IETF stuff, or is this
Yeah, it's
okay?
it, I mean, major contributions to the IETF work probably should be done in an IETF forum, but I think there's there's certainly some crossover here and some relevance between them. I'm hoping that anybody participating here will be sort of somewhat tracking both, although maybe in a slightly different focus. Um, but yeah, we can get into the pieces of it for sure. Uh, okay, so the main things I had were actually there's another one I need to add, which is the I've been dropping a lot of balls, but the security sec dispatch follow up. I need to I I think I mentioned last time that one of my major tasks was going to be to kick off the MSec discussions, and I've not actually managed to do that. I was late, and then there was the holidays, and I thought it wasn't going to be useful anyway. So I'm still planning to do that, and today or maybe tomorrow. I was working on that this morning. I can share some of the text I've got. Uh,
I still haven't updated the draft on the data tracker with our latest changes from like 2 months ago. Do you want me to do that before you, like this afternoon?
um, oh, the draft in the data tracker as opposed to the GitHub. I don't think it matters. Whichever you like. We
Okay.
can, yeah. Um, yeah, I'll be pointing at the GitHub one and encouraging people to engage there, but uh, there were a few changes, but there wasn't that much, right? From two
No,
months
it's
ago.
just it's been a long time since I've updated the one on the data tracker, so it might be worth doing anyway, just to make sure it doesn't expire.
Yes, I think I have. I think I got notice last week that several of my Mbone drafts are expiring, and I need to update them. Um, yeah, there's kind. I feel like there's a lot to juggle, but it's okay. Right. So there are just a few topics. So Web Transport did respond to my request to consider adding multicast as a use case. The feedback was that it's premature and there's no browsers that are interested, so they don't want to add it now. Um, Dave Shinazi at Google apparently spoke against it um, on those grounds. So that's not as far as I understand it, that's not a um, you should stop working on this, it won't work. That is a we don't think it's worth working on because it's too far-fetched or something, or not sufficiently it doesn't have sufficient interest at this point. So I think that's the thing we'll have to change. Um, so and that maybe I should reorder these. I had a note here about we'll probably have to plan on doing some attempting to do some kind of deployment without browser support, which would mean running an external app. What I have in mind is trying to put together a proof of concept that would, uh, have a little, just like a regular HTTP, you know, whatever it is, Ajax thing that would like when you're in a network where multicast is available, either by walled garden or by external import for the content that you're trying to watch, then you know, a pretty simple little web API could say like click here for higher quality content, and then you could have a higher bit rate that's available over multicast. You know, this is a thing we can ship without any additional browser support. So if I can get that rolling, then that's my guess is, since I mean there was some W3C support for this, but with web transport dragging their feet, then it's going to be I don't know if it's going to go anywhere this year really, or maybe without getting some kind of deployment rolling just to prove it's credible. Um, so I was a little disappointed in that, but I am still hopeful that we will actually do something with either the browser side or the game delivery side.
You
Both
can
of those conversations are going.
you can still prove it's credible though if you go through another avenue if you want, which I think you should.
Yeah.
Whether that be through sec dispatch or
Oh,
maybe having maybe creating a BOF or
oh yeah, yeah. So I guess that's the next point I was gonna try and do. Like again, I think I'm gonna get the same pushback or something similar, which is we're gonna have to add it to Quick in order to get it into web transport. So the idea there, so I don't know if I've given any updates to you and Mike, Chris, or Mike and Chris here. But last month I started working on trying to stand up the web transport tests. There's web platform tests for web transport, and to fold multicast into that. So it would be a sort of very similar to so the BBC had a multicast HTTP over Quick draft some time ago, but they've kept it up to date, and there's an implementation out there, and it will do. It's designed to do the segment transport, and they had a demo that was running in London, I think. It was at 103 or 101 or something. IETF 103 or 101. They still have kept the draft active, but have not updated it much. They have the source code published for that. This is not web transport, but it is a sort of multicast based delivery path. They did not have uh, the packet level integrity that we're proposing with Ambi. That I think is going to be important for the reasons we put in the multicast security considerations doc. Right, it's like attackable by because it's possible to inject traffic, and if you can get traffic injected, then one packet can eliminate a whole segment's worth of data, which can be 1,000 packets or more. And so that would serve as a denial of service. And it's also possible to like probe for the success of an injection. So if you have uh, unauthenticated packet level data, then I'm not sure it's viable. They would throw away the entire segment and refetch it with unicast if this happened. But I am worried about the viability of rolling out something that does it that way, as opposed to being able to reject individual bad packets. But there is an implementation of it, and what I was going to try and do is something similar in the current web platform tests for web transport with datagram support. So basically add some extension frames to Quick that that do a few things that we're going to need. This is going to be like, you know, notify the receive side that this is available over a multicast channel in some form. Allow the uh, the receiver to there's going to be some like key exchange stuff. I think the ambi hash data can be sent over the same web transport channel inside some special frames, some dedicated frame for that, so that there can be a sort of linkage between the web transport quick connection and the multicast quick connection that delivers the data that they'd receive. But then that would be a shared key that gets sent to the receivers and a sort of, hey, we're opening up a channel uh, on this multicast channel that you should subscribe to, and then start receiving those datagrams as part of your web transport. Um,
So as
and
far as,
then,
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
well, what you'd be able to do with that is just take any existing UDP stuff at the sender side and receive the UDP packets and sort of shove it into the web transport data channel, and then it would get unpacked as a datagram on the other side. So you could do the same kind of port that the current demo has, where once you had it running in UDP, then you can just sort of ship it as a web app that receives datagrams. Sorry, your question?
Question and comment. So I'm just trying to help you to progress this work this year somehow. And so as far as the ITF is concerned, it sounds like what you're saying is even if you were to go the BOF route or maybe reopen MSEC, which would also include going the BOF route, by the way, you're saying that even if you were to form a working group, you still would need to, since it's extensions to Quick, you'd still need to get blessings from them, which I think is, I guess that's the discussion that would need to be had because it could still be worth that process. I mean, that's how the ITF works. I mean, you create a community. If there's enough interest, then maybe it forces the hand of people to say, yeah, actually, we probably should do this instead
Right.
of just Jake pushing this. So
So
it's something to consider this.
the sec dispatch result was to take the discussion to MSEC. So the mailing list is still open. The working
Barely
group is
though. Yeah,
closed.
I just joined it just the other day. I hadn't been on it for
Sure.
years
Yeah.
because of your Mbone D comments. So
Right.
if you do email them, you should probably CC Mbone
Well,
D or something,
I will CC a few people. Yes.
or check dispatch or whatever.
I
Yeah.
will certainly sec dispatch. I was just trying to put together. I guess that leads into my next topic. I was just trying to put together a sort of summary in response to the comments I got from sec dispatch. Why don't I share my screen? Um, maybe just the all right. You see this one? Um, and can you see it okay? I'm not sure. But
I can read it.
okay. So what I've done here is the Jabber logs are archived for the sec dispatch session. So I grabbed the Jabber logs and I separated it by topic that people were talking about and sketched a response into these. I hadn't yet decided whether I'm gonna uh, send this as one email or put it as a document that I check in somewhere, and then send a link to the doc, uh, and then just try and get people to join MSEC in order to discuss these different topics that have been raised. But or maybe the thing to do is to open an issue against, like in the draft Kairos multicast security repo for sort of each of these topics to to track it there. Um, I think that would be reasonable. But there were some good comments in the chat I think. There were also a few reasonable comments in the sec dispatch mic line, I think. But basically, I think the main one to me really was, or the maybe the biggest one was, you should have a specific proposal, which is what I'm trying to do with the quick extension. And then we might need to flesh out the security model, the threat model better. Like people, nobody yet has offered one, or people say things like this is a non-starter without confidentiality, but when people ask, like Ben asked, like, well, what do you mean by confidentiality in this context? What does confidentiality even mean here? Or DKG, right? Um, Nobody has attempted to answer that as far as I can tell. Uh, so we might need to make an answer to that and let people beat it up or something. I'm not quite sure. But there's also the point that nobody responds too much, which is like TLS is vulnerable to traffic analysis, and this is well documented and seems to be not on the radar of the people commenting on Sec Dispatch about how TLS does everything. I don't know how relevant it is, right? I mentioned this once in the Chromium discussion thread, and Ryan Sleevey was like, "Yeah, but that's whataboutism. You can't say that just because TLS is not perfect, we can do something imperfect here." Um, I'm not sure what that means exactly, but I do think that that question hinges on like what's the threat actor here and what are they doing? And do they have that capability today and are they using it? That's another question because um, the TLS traffic analysis stuff. Like I found a paper here that's about, somebody asked about, can my service providers see what I'm watching on Netflix? And the answer is yes. There's a paper about 99.9%, 0.99% identifiability on the Netflix stuff after they switched to TLS. Um, so I feel like this is the discussion that has to happen on the MSEC list and the one that I'm trying to kick off. And then the other big piece of it is like having a demo to run that has specific security properties that people can argue about. The other one they brought up was there was a thread about the Ipsec and the group security key exchange stuff. There's a draft about it. Uh, and I think it's like I'm not a huge fan of it for wanting to use it, but I do think that what it does is maybe something worth referencing inside the security consideration. It does sort of have the same privacy consideration questions, and it has this sort of answer to some of the issues. Right, there is certainly the concept of the group key and how it's shared, and there's a bunch of stuff that's all documented there, so it's probably worth mentioning as an existing solution. But they also talk about how like the source authentication part of that is hard, and as far as I can tell is not solved. I don't know, but um so yeah, I think there's really two outcome or three actions as an outcome to this. One is a few updates to the doc that I'm trying to kind of get written down, captured as security consideration stack. The other is a new proposal for a quick extension, and the other is the discussion on the MSEC list to sort of demonstrate consensus on both of those.
And maybe a fourth to have a plan for the next IETF, which is coming up quick.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean to accomplish for the next IETF. I think the one after that, I would hope to aim for a BOF, but
Okay.
I don't know if it'll get there. A BOF to probably reopen MSEC if I can get enough engagement. So I'm trying to figure out how to frame this as
And I hope
Yeah,
that
I
one's
interesting enough. What?
significantly in person too. The summer
Yes.
one. Yeah.
Right.
Is
If
that in
that pans
Philly?
out,
That one?
yeah, it is.
Okay.
all right.
There'll be a lot of us in Vienna though, but probably not as nearly as many, you're right, as Philadelphia.
A lot of what?
A
The
lot of
next meeting's
people
in
in
Vienna.
person.
A lot of yeah, in person. A lot of us will be
Uh,
in Vienna next in 2 months, but
yeah, hopefully.
much more will probably be in Philadelphia. You're right.
Um, so yeah, I think that's the outline of the plan is like have a demo running in Vienna and have a see if I can get a BOF put together for Philly, and then uh, we'll see where we stand. But that was basically the web transport feedback is that we can't pull it through them. We have to do something on the IETF side and uh, get some engagement there. Um,
Do you
in
remember
order
who
to,
chaired the MSEC working group when it was open?
I don't.
I don't either. We can find that out, but
Yeah,
you either reopen that, you either do a BOF to reopen that, or you just go all rogue and create your own new working group, which is valid as well. You can
yeah.
share it and make lots of
Well,
money.
I, I don't think that's the way to make money.
No, it's not.
That's the way to lose money. Um, but it might lead to something that can make money. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I guess my preference is to well, I guess the other question is whether it can be done in Quick. Um, if we're doing it through Quick or through web transport. I think it has to be Quick because it has to be a change. Has to be some changes to Quick to support web transport. So there's like 3 working groups involved here, which I'm sure won't be any problem at all with coordination. Um, plus the MSEC list because nobody else wants to talk about multicast. So yeah, there's some challenges ahead there, uh, but that's the sort of standards based set of things to accomplish, I think. Um, on the deployment side, um, I'm trying to. I wish I had more to announce yet. I still have some hope that we will do something real. Sorry about that. That we will do something real. Uh, but I am disappointed with how far we've got on what I can announce yet. And I still don't know. I guess I expect to be under what happens. So it's going to have to have scoping that keeps it from getting too big. Um, but
What
it's
is the can you explain a little bit about the proposed deployment? I don't know how much you
yeah.
can say here.
So there's 2 main paths forward. One is to do um, web-based video as a sort of pull on the
Oh,
on
the
getting
video versus
ground
software
support,
download.
video versus software
Okay.
download, yeah.
All right.
And the other is to do some software download. So we're basically and it's possible we would do both, but I think that these would end up being sort of 2 different product lines, essentially. And I'm trying to put together sort of minimum viable product to get something off the ground on each of those. Um, Separate question within each of those is then whether it's walled garden or the sort of external ingest of multicast. I think of a global multicast address. I think a lot of the work we've done in MBOND is dedicated toward making that external ingest of global multicast be a feasible path for the ISPs. Um, but there are some challenges there, which are like there's not like a product yet that would be the ingest platform. Like there's a demo, but it's not really a production kind of system. We've had some discussion with a few people, notably like um, uh, NetDef. I talked to Alistair about whether they would be able to productize that if somebody, if we kind of got together enough to fund it. And he was like, "Yeah, that seems like it's up our alley if you're gonna pay for the development." um, so that's a maybe. There's also like it's not impossible that we would make our own version of this product, or if we can demonstrate sufficient interest that Cisco or Juniper could be talked into doing the same, or Huawei, or whoever. Um, but the idea there is like the standards-based external ingest of global multicast. So that's one path, but it's sort of missing a big piece of that. So the other path would be a walled garden deployment for either of those, the video delivery uh, or the game delivery, file delivery kind of system. So I think part of the point with the web-based launch and external uh, process demo, like the demo would have to be based on targeting something like a Zoom user experience model, right? Where you have a link to a thing, and what that does is like kick off an external app, and then have to make that stupid app for all the platforms that you want to support, right? Which is less good than getting it folded into the browser, which is why we're trying to get it folded into the browser. But nonetheless, it would be possible to start something there for the video side, and then to be able to kind of transition that to a pure browser model as we get any browser deployment. But probably we'd want to do that uh, in a way that would support either deployment model, either the walled garden or the external global. So it would be some kind of you know, I mean, this would be our own like little web service, right? So it would be like, checksum database to decide whether my IP should try to use a global address or a global set of addresses, or try to use one that's from a walled garden in the local ISP. So that doesn't seem undoable by any stretch, but uh, it seems like probably the direction we'll have to go to get some deployment, to get enough deployment to spur browser interest. Think, unless maybe we actually get some deployment on the download part too. Um, if we can demonstrate that working, then who knows? So that's where I stand at the moment. I think not quite where I wanted it to be, but um, let's see. My own drafts are expiring. I have to update those. They may have already expired. And in fact, I'm pretty sure MNAT has expired, and I need to update that. Right. So, any questions, comments, advice?
I agree with the approach of doing something if we're not going to be able to get browser support. I mean, you and I have talked about how there's a lot of these chicken and egg scenarios where people say, yeah, I'm interested, but what about this piece or something like that? So Just like with the little prototype you have going right now with that little demo you can download and at least do some streaming. I mean, that's, kind of like the little steps that we need to work towards. And one little bit of perspective I guess I'll give is regarding Quick. I do think that if there is a path forward using that, it may actually be an advantage with just how people tend to latch onto things they see as, kind of quote unquote the future. You see a lot of work around Quick. You see a lot of development around Quick. I think I mentioned when I was talking to someone internally that one of their first questions was something like, does it incorporate Quick, or could it use Quick, or something like that. So it's almost like, kind of using something brand name or well known in order to, get some attention to your product or whatever. So definitely focusing on any solution that gets us forward with Quick, I think might help even getting attention from browser support, just if it's just overall more attention in the industry.
Sure. And I do think that it makes good sense technically just to make it more feasible to fold into web transport as a datagram receive. I have no objection to actually doing something, with authenticated packets that's object level also, the way that the BBC draft is. I think they can maybe reuse the hashes. I'll try and get working for the datagram, the sort of ambi pathway for that, and then that would and maybe I can get into that as an extra nice to have. I think it's important to do the datagram part because it means that you can port existing multicast applications over, which I think is a useful thing to be able to do. I think it makes it more interesting to people who do have existing multicast applications. Like, it would be great if Broadpeak started marketing about how much better their solution is than ours, so that we can, get some impetus to. I mean, that would prove just as well that there is some value here, but
Yeah, I would say though that there's the various Quick proposals that you've outlined are neat technical approaches that have this nice, that it's sort of like their ultimate expression, have this nice property of being effectively transparent to the application. Right, where you have where it's just sort of under the covers, Quick tries to grab the data via multicast, and if it fails for whatever reason, it backs off to unicast and just kind of happens. That is a really compelling and neat engineering story. And I wouldn't discount the value of how neat that is to a community of engineering nerds. So there's
okay.
So it's, I mean, like I definitely agree that like there are obviously some existing multicast applications that would benefit from the object level approach. But I wonder if let's say we're successful in getting this into Quick and therefore into web transport, 5 years from now, what's that traffic balance going to be, right? Multicast datagrams using Quick may account for like the overwhelming majority of the traffic if we're successful, right? Existing applications
Sure.
might then just switch over.
Okay. Certainly, it would be possible to do, to make changes to the sender also, right? So that you have a sort of cleaner sender side solution. And yeah, if that's like deployed, then I would expect new applications to probably start from that.
Yeah.
But I think you can do it with a sort of sender side, uh, you know, proxy almost, that sort of interfaces between a legacy multicast application that you haven't even touched, that just sends UDP packets and puts them into the form that they can be consumed by arbitrary web transport
Yeah, I
connections.
mean, and I'm not proposing. I definitely would not suggest that we put all of our eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah,
So I'm just saying that like there's if we look at at sort of the optimistic endpoint, it may be that's where that quick just kind of consumes the world, right? Which is a likely outcome regardless.
sure. And that's one of the reasons that extending quick is helpful. I agree with both of you on that. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, that's my plan, I guess. Anything I should add to this? Do you guys want to preview my MSEC attempt and comment on it?
Yes, I was going to ask if you can send this
Yeah.
document because I'd like to read the whole thing. I don't think I there's probably a lot of comments in here that I'm not even aware of. So
That could be. It was really helpful that the Jabber log was was logged. I think there was more interesting discussion in Jabber than at the mic, um, and more than I got on the mailing list ahead of time. Also, like, it was good that Ecker reviewed it. Um, yeah, he doesn't seem to think it's a good idea, but he also couldn't point me at what's wrong with it, right? Um, I feel like if he had a real technical objection, he would have raised it. He's good that way. I didn't hear one, so I don't know.
well, I feel like most of the objections that I've heard are in the sort of unease category with the same data getting sent to multiple people, revealing information about allowing one receiver to know information about another receiver, right? But as we've discussed, there are a bunch of good counter arguments and kind of countervailing properties that mitigate a lot of that, right? Things that are not even possible with unicast, right? That actually improve the posture in some ways, right? So it's kind of it's a trade-off. And what I want, like, I think ultimately, if we're successful here, it's not going to be by convincing them that this is perfect, but that the trade-offs are reasonable for the benefit that is gained, in exchange for the benefits of greater efficiency and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, there's new information exposed to the network here, and that's what makes everybody nervous. But like, nobody's been able to point me at why is it a problem. Um, and I'm still looking for that. I I don't know that there's definitely not a problem, but especially when you couple it with like the traffic analysis attacks against TLS that you know really do give the same kind of capability and farther upstream than multicast has. I don't like, if we had information about what threat actors are doing that and what they're doing with this information, then that would be helpful too, maybe.
Yeah, I just think there's a bit of orthodoxy and faith involved here,
I
right?
do
I mean,
not want to accuse people of religious
No. I mean, look, and I would not suggest that as an approach, right? But that doesn't mean that it isn't what's happening, right? So so I think, like, we need to recognize the reality that as an incumbent, TLS is going to get an easier ride than some new model when it comes to, like, privacy and security analysis, right? But then, so the question is, how do we deal with that, right, in a way that does not, provoke a defensive reaction among the people whose at least indifference we're seeking, right? I don't know
Sure.
that, like, we're never going to get Ecker's approval on this, right? But can we
All
at
right,
least
but
get him to, you know?
I mean, my favorite answer here is like, let's just start shipping some traffic for real. That would be great. And then, if we actually do get threat actors abusing it somehow, then we'll have a better idea what they're doing, and we can talk about whether we should stop. But I feel like we should start shipping this traffic if we can. I'm trying to make that case.
Does anyone else here, like, greatly disagree with what I've said, or what I've sort of suggested is the dynamic here? Because I mean, I could be totally off base. People might see something totally different than I am, right? And I'm not trying to. I don't want to try and, like, color all of this work with as, like, some crusade against recalcitrant uh incumbent orthodoxy, right? That's not really what I'm trying to do, but I know it comes out that way.
I wish I knew. I have talked to, the people who are skeptical are web security people, right? And you got Ecker, but you also got Dave Shinazi, and you also got, um, a few others like Chris Palmer and Ryan Sleevey. Um, it's what I'm hearing is like it is very challenging to change the web security model, and therefore you should not try. If you can't blow through their rhetoric with demonstrating a viable use case and some interest, then it's not worth talking to you.
Well, complicating this is the fact that it's not actually written down in precise detail anywhere,
I know.
right? So
I know. It's frustrating, yes.
it's sort of like a bunch of memes that float around in the heads of 24 people, and
Yes.
that's what the web security model is.
Not only that, but they're sensitive because people have tried to push it back before, and it was a very, I hear, long, hard slog that they just went through to get everybody to use TLS, but it finally happened. Um, yeah, I don't think we have, well, please feel free to disagree, but I'm not sure we've got the people here who would be able to answer that question today. I can't.
It's true for this topic in particular, but for the IETF and standards in general, there's plenty of religious protectionism that goes on constantly that I've faced my entire IETF career. So don't let that frustrate you too much. It just keep pursuing. It's
Okay. Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think the real arbiter here is if we start shipping traffic, people will be interested. Um, it's just getting over that hump.
I do agree at that point, even if it lacks some amount of security. I mean, as long as you're not violating some contract or agreement or something like that, and it's just, I don't know if I want to call it dummy traffic, like we could probably send something real, but just, making sure it's nothing that sensitive, or, something that if it does somehow get compromised or watched outside of how we intended it, then it's no big deal. But, kind of as like a higher level demo, I guess. You don't use, like at least internally, if we were going to do a demo with something, we don't necessarily use, HBO content, which, has contracts and things like that, but we can use some other types of video that are a little more friendly. And I think there's even open content, if that's even the right word, like for open caching.
Yeah.
There's some cartoon that they use for their demo, and it was like an open license video stream.
Yeah, I've got some of that.
Yeah, so that's a safe way to do it at least. Because you're right, it's
Yeah.
demonstrating the viability, and then you add security on top of that.
Well, okay, but what I mean is sending real traffic that people use mostly, right? That's the and I do think it's going to be important to have authentication because I would actually feel really guilty if, like, you know, everybody watching some sports event got their computers owned or their TVs owned or whatever.
Yeah, well, the basic level of security that's that's at least more approachable compared to the kind of things we're discussing, which are the challenges right now.
All right.
Yeah, if I think I'll just say as my final sort of comment on the approach, I like the approach of actually delivering real traffic, and I think you can't run a counterfactual, but my guess is that if Google had started quick by trying to standardize it, it probably never would have gotten done. So
it would not be where it is.
Yeah.
We have SCTP as proof.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I guess any other questions or comments, or I think, what did I say? Try to pin down some target dates. If I should do that, I guess I probably should. Certainly, let me propose end of today. If you got, so Kyle, you said yes. Mike and Chris, do you guys want to preview my Ipsec discussion? Comment on it?
I would like to.
Yes, please do that.
Great. I will send that to you guys too. And then that'll go out. I really hope I can get that out by the end of the week. And other than that, I will continue trying to get the proper funding to actually do something production internally and try to get the demo working for, continue trying to get the demo working for web transport. That one has a lot of yak shaving just to run the web platform tests, but I did get them running, just not easy to use. Anyway, I don't know. You guys probably don't want to work on that. I know you're all very busy. But I might. The other thing I'll try and do, I guess, I'll probably check that into the community group repo. Just to sort of, here's the way I ran the web platform tests, and a pointer if I can find it to, if I can get one to what kind of a browser I would need to do it. Okay. Well, thanks a lot. I think if that's it, then that's all I had.
Are you in Utah, Kyle? Snowbird shirt?
Sorry, what was that?
You have a snowbird shirt.
I do.
Are you in Utah, or do you just like to ski there?
Oh, I just like to ski there.
Okay.
So I'm a big snowbird and Alta are the mountains out west I go to most often.
I'll stop the recording, but you guys can keep.
Have a good one. Thanks. Keep at